The Data Chief is a podcast for data and analytics leaders to share their personal stories and insights on technology, culture, and leadership. Welcome to the Data Chief.
Welcome to the dynamic world of analytics and AI with the Data Chief. I'm your host, Cindi Howson. Today, we're stepping into the high-stakes arena of modern policing, where data is not just a tool, it's a frontline defense. We're privileged to have Aimee Smith, Director of Data for London's Metropolitan Police, a true visionary who's spearheading the Met's data and AI transformation. We'll unpack their cutting-edge innovation, high-pressure decisions, and the relentless pursuit of a safer society. Aimee, welcome to the Data Chief.
Thank you for having me. It's such a privilege.
The Data Chief is brought to you by ThoughtSpot, the AI-native intelligence platform. Anyone can leverage natural language search and generative AI to explore any data, ask any question, and uncover actionable insights faster. Learn why industry leaders like NVIDIA, Hilton, Capital One, and Huel rely on ThoughtSpot to drive their business on data. Experience the future of intelligence at ThoughtSpot.com.
It's so great to have you here, and it was wonderful seeing you a few months ago in London at the Women in Data event. Congratulations on the Top 20 award that you received.
Thank you. Again, that was such a humbling experience just to be up on the stage with all of those women. And just to be honest, it's a real career highlight for me, getting a Women in Data series. So yeah, it was amazing. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a very inspiring event. So Aimee, of course, like you're in London or in the UK, but can you tell us a little bit more? Where are you joining us from today?
I'm actually joining you from my house. I'm working from home today, and all the very boring logistics of the fact that my daughter has brownies and that's where she's going tonight and somebody has to pick her up. My husband also works for policing, so he's in London today, so I am here.
Okay.
Got the joy of my kitchen.
Yeah, tag teaming is always a good thing, especially when it's for family events. So Aimee, let's start with, tell us a little bit about your role at the Met Police.
Yeah, so my title is Director of Data, and I say this quite a lot. That's because the word Chief Data Officer is not a title you can say in policing, because chief is something you put in charge in front of the word Chief Constable, and you couldn't possibly have two chiefs. So yes, I'm the Director of Data, and what that covers is everything from collection, management, use of, analytics, artificial intelligence, data science and engineering, and also discharging our data rights for the public. So making sure we are up to date on legislation in terms of when people want access to their own data. So I have the whole gambit, really.
Yeah, that's quite a broad purview that you have. And going back in time, can you describe a little bit what drove the creation of the Met's overall data strategy?
Yeah, so the overall creation really came from the leadership drive from Cressida Dick when she was the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Service. And she could see how our partner agencies and the National Crime Agency were really starting to harness the power of data. And she stood up a transformation program that looked to build data capabilities for the organization on top of, to be honest, quite traditional data users of intelligence and performance and those traditional strands, but actually building a data and analytics capability more broadly for the organization. So that's where it's rooted in, is that one person's leadership ambition, which has been amazing.
Yeah, no, it's great when you have a partner that is in a leadership position to help you actually execute and shape it. So this is where you are now. Take us through some of the steps or milestones in your career that brought you to this point.
So this might be quite a lengthy story, so stop me if it's too much. So I'll just tell you the key highlights. So I've worked for the Metropolitan Police Service for 25 years this year. And I don't think that's a career progression that a lot of chief data officers would have. So they, you know, quite often they move around a lot. So the first thing to say is working in policing is such an exciting environment. There are so many different roles to do. But if I take you back, I'll tell you where this all sort of started. And it's riding to visit family in Lancashire, Blackpool, actually, where we were traveling from Nottingham. We had to go over the Saddleworth Mall. And my mum told me the story, probably unwisely, at age 9, of the Saddleworth Mall murders. And people can go and Google what that is. But I was so intrigued by this, but from that point, I knew I wanted to work for the police and ended up doing a degree in criminology at university, which led me to see an advert for intelligence analysis inside the Metropolitan Police Service. So I started as an intelligence analyst, working locally on a borough, which is kind of like a precinct for policing, and looking at burglary, robbery, and doing the analytical trends and analysis for that. A very clever guy called Paul Hudson then took a chance on me to stand up the first research and analytical capability in covert policing in UK. And we started to use research and analysis techniques inside the world of covert collection. So if you think The Wire, if you think undercover operatives, if you think listening to people chats in their living rooms, serious and organized criminals, I started with a team that did that. And then really got a good grounding in all of those different data sources and techniques. I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time, but it's come to serve me well. Then moved into the change environments, the transformation environment for the organization and looking how to transform its intelligence capability. I then got pregnant, went off on maternity leave. And between my first and second maternity leave, I was asked to lead the data transformation program that I told you about earlier from Cressida Dick. So come and lead this, describe what it is, design a data office for London, and then start to deliver its capabilities. And that's sort of what's led me here to be the director of data. And I'd probably just mention on the way a couple of people who then really shaped my thinking. So the first was Davin Crowley-Sweet from National Highways. I don't know if you have had him on your podcast. If you haven't, you so should. Done some amazing things around tracking the value of data in decision-making. It's been amazing what he's done there. Caroline Carruthers was a real sort of mentor. And then the Women in Data. It's just really helped me, even though I've stayed in the same organization where I can connect data to business value. Having people on the outside saying, did you know this is what's happening here? Did you know that's how we're thinking it there? So there's some real career kind of progressions for me. And that's how I've ended up sitting here.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. It's so inspiring. I mean, I do picture you as a child hearing about these murderers. And just because I'm married to a Brit with friends in the police force, I know a little bit about it. I don't want to go super dark. But for world listeners, maybe just mention why it was so rare in the UK.
So the Saddleworth Moors murders relate to Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, a couple who kidnapped children from off the street in the 1960s and took them up to Saddleworth Moor and killed them. And this went on for a good couple of years until the police net sort of closed in on the two of them. But it was so shocking as a case.
Yeah.
Now it really resonates. And they have not yet found all of the victims. And the Saddleworth Moor is huge. The idea that you're going to find and search for these things. And the families of those victims really, quite rightly, pursue the police and say, we must find the bodies of those victims. But it was just really haunting to me as a child to think that that could happen. I think the first... But it just fascinated me that the police were relentless about it.
No, definitely something that shaped not just your career, but your life. And then I do love that you mentioned 3 other organizations or people, that we also work with. I think it shows the synergy across the industry that when you are doing transformation, there may not be a playbook that came before you. And especially in policing, there may not be a playbook. There might be in CPG or financial services. So having these external influencers and partners, I think, is a really good best practice. You mentioned when you started up this research group, and I do think about the range of data that you leverage. Can you share more about that?
Yeah. So I think the first thing to say about the data that we hold is it's vast. There are hundreds of systems and applications. There are thousands of different data assets because we've built those assets over time. So the Met was formed in 1829. So I'm talking physical records as much as I am digital records. But it's also important to say we have our own part of the Data Protection Act, and we have laws that govern how policing collects and uses information for operational and investigative purposes. So what that creates is a completely unique set of data holdings. So when I say data, I mean when you call 999, the voice, the text, the way that call is recorded in terms of then leading to the dispatch of police officers to help you in your hour of need, the crime record, the suspects, the victims, body-worn video, forensics that is collected at the scene. I mean, I could go on, but these are all different data holdings that we have that uniquely help us deliver our job, but also, to be honest, uniquely help the UK PLC understand what is really happening in terms of criminality prevention and victim services.
Yeah. And I also think it's not only the digital structured data, it's also semi-structured data like mobility, facial recognition, things like this. How does the complexity of the types of data make your job easier or harder?
Oh, that's such a difficult question to answer because I suppose it depends what job I'm doing in the Met as to whether it's making it easier or harder. So I think the hardest it is as a director of data because you've got to understand where is it all, how does it join together? Are we collecting the same types of data through different technology systems and they don't talk to each other? Yes. Then there's what's it like if you're a frontline officer? Body-worn video has changed your whole way of working for the better because now you can capture real life responses to questions. You can show how you're working. I mean, it's just been a revelation. And then there's kind of the in-between bit, which is if you're trying to make sense of that as an investigator to get a conviction,
Yeah.
get a charge, post-arrest, you're still having to wade through lots of different systems to find what you need that's relevant to that case. So turning data to evidence, essentially. So in the main, things are better than they ever have been. But the rules and the engagement and the skills you need to do that I don't think can keep pace with the development of technology and digital capabilities, if I'm honest.
I think this is true for every organization. The technology is outpacing humans' ability to absorb it, really.
Yeah, it is. And then you've got to put rules and legislation around that before you introduce something, because the risk for us is you can introduce something and you can lose a case. Once you've lost a case, the public trust in that and then your ability to get outcomes for victims is significantly harder. So you have to rethink everything through, which makes us look so much slower. But the considerations around that are massive.
Yeah, well, we'll come back to one of the points you just raised. But if I think about how you're using this data, you referred to convictions. I've referred to a safer society. Is there one overall mission for your team or for the Met in how you leverage data and AI?
At the very highest level, yes. So one of the 5 principles of our business strategy for London to keeping it safe is to be more precise in the use of data for decision making. So it's a high level principle of our strategy. The reality is, though, that the mission of policing isn't singular. So we're not just here to say make profit. We're not just here to prevent crime. We're not here to make profit at all, but there's not a single mission. Do you see what I mean? We're here to prevent, we're here to respond, we're here to react, we're here to be proactive and try and get ahead of organized crime groups. We're here to get outcomes for victims who want them. We're here to provide a service for those who don't. We're here to arrest suspects and keep them safe while they're in custody. There's just multiple missions.
Yeah.
And that actually makes the mission of data and analytics much harder because there's not enough data specialists and too many data pots to point at all of those missions in one go. So at the moment, what we're focusing on is volume crime like robbery, mobile phone theft, violence against women and girls, and then preventative effort using better techniques. So being more effective at policing services, essentially.
Right. So it comes back to that precision. Where do you target your efforts in a way? As you think about the range of data sources and technologies that you can bring to bear, how has that infrastructure changed over, let's say, the last 5 years? What's the role of cloud and AI now versus 5 years ago?
Okay, so 5 years ago, we did not have a single integrated system within which we would put all of our operational data. We had 8 systems that all were built at the time for a collective purpose, for a specific policing purpose, right? So it might be this one's intelligence, this one's crime records, this one's antisocial behavior orders, this one's property. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we didn't have an integrated solution, and we also didn't have cloud. So now we're 2 years into having introduced the integrated operations system, which is still, people are still, I'll be honest, the business process changes for that are still well lagging behind the technology process. So now the data is integrated, but people still want to use it like they use the old 7 systems. So that's been a challenge. But we have that capability. From a data perspective, that means we have an integrated data model, a poll model.
Okay.
Really useful for us in terms of how we might point analytics and data science at that in a way we couldn't have done previously. And now we have also built a cloud platform, a data and analytics platform, which is built at the moment. We've got our first use case going onto it, and all of our engineers and in-house data scientists are trained in the tooling and the stack with inside it, so that we can start to accelerate the use of that capability.
And what's been the impact of that? Is it mainly acceleration? Is it agility? Is it using the new techniques?
So I would think the place that's accelerated most at the moment, if I'm honest, is the ability and capability of science and engineering, which was only a year, 2 years old before we got. So we didn't have data scientists before that. So it's accelerated their professional capability to get ready for the acceleration that's coming. As I say, our first use case is rolling out now. I think once we've got that on the cloud, then I think things will speed up, because the data sets that we've loaded into the platform are going to be the same data set other use cases want to use. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
I think we'll be able to go quicker. The problem has been kind of your operating model around a cloud platform is very different to the operating model that you need to manage when you're in we weren't in analog phase, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
And
Paper phase.
yeah, kind of paper phase or different system phases. So I'll be honest, until the operating model around how you govern the data using
Yeah.
digital capabilities, not just, a person goes in and looks at something, which
Yeah.
is where we were, and the data analytics and AI, how that harmonizes and the right balance together. So which bits are done by analysts, which bits are self-serve, where do we apply AI in a way that we haven't before? Once that balance is clear, I think we'll be able to go quicker. But the reality is your op model around the enterprise data platform has got to be as mature as your skills in using it. And I don't think we've got there yet.
Yeah. And that takes time. As one data leader on this podcast said to me, it's easier to change 20-year-old technologies than 20-year-old mindsets. And just to
Yeah.
make you feel better, you referred to 8 different source systems. There's some organizations that I talk to that have hundreds of different source systems. So it's always, it depends. The complexity depends. But if you focus a little bit on your tech stack for data and analytics and AI, can you share some specific technologies that power that platform?
Yeah, so we are using Microsoft Azure as our main platform. We're using Databricks inside there to build and utilize our engineering capability and our science capability. And we've got the tools that we've got on the front end are Power BI. We're actually moving from Tableau to Power BI, but also we've got ThoughtSpot. So some of those capabilities, once they're connected, will be in the hands of frontline officers. So they're in the hands of frontline officers now, but they're connecting to raw source systems. What we want to be able to do is put different data sets in their hands, and that's the intention for EDP.
Yeah, that's great. And then one of the initiatives within the modernization is V100. Describe
Yeah.
for our listeners, what is V100 and why is this so important?
So we've made a commitment to reduce the threat against violence against women and girls. So V100 is a data analytics and an initiative to look across all of that source data that I told you about, largely in those 8 operational systems, identify individuals, largely men, not exclusively, but predominantly men who have got either previous allegations, convictions of harm, to try and put them in a priority order of who we need to go after. So the principle being the 100 most harmful men against women and girls, we need to proactively target them and minimize their impact. That's the principle behind it. And I should say, it's not a predictive capability. That's not what we're trying to do. We're not saying, did you want to steal a toffee from a shop and we're going to say that you're going to be arrested for murder. What we're saying is, we already have to sift through this volume manually. Let's use data and analytics to automate and kind of standardize that process and take out some of the subjectivity that would have happened if you'd have done it lots of times locally, do it once and well, and then serve the answer to boroughs so they can absolutely target the right people.
Right. So it's more prevention, trying to reduce it before a report is filed. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because largely those people who've got multiple complaints, multiple arrests, they usually go on to reoffend. So it's
Yeah.
trying to take that pool of people.
Yeah. And what is the role of the Cambridge Crime Harm Index in this?
So that's about how we determine level of risk. So if you take so it's about the crime type that somebody has the suspect has attached to them, and there may be multiple different types, but it gives it a harm score, what the harm would be if that crime was to happen again, and that then is what determines the score of that individual person suspect, and
Okay.
that's what ranks and rates them.
Yeah. And so this is where you're working on reducing the crime, but there's also the community engagement angle. Can you describe a little bit more about that?
Just for V100 or more broadly?
More broadly.
Yeah, really, really challenging because the public are not a homogenous mass who all have one opinion. In fact, quite often, different communities have opposing opinions. So in terms of how we use data and analytics, in terms of our engagement with communities, we use quite a traditional old-fashioned method of talking to people. So we have what we call independent advisory groups, and we have got those set up with people who are prepared to work with the police, coming from a particular community position, and that might be geography, background, ethnicity, sexuality, all different types of independent advisory groups. And when we want to launch an initiative, or we want to talk to someone about what do you think about this strategy or this approach, we utilize that network for consultation. That usually helps shape a pitch or a proposal for something that we do. And if we needed to go out for wider public consultation, then we'll use our internet site and we'll launch a proper public consultation through our mayor's office and on our intranet site. So that's kind of how we manage that. We also have an ethics panel that if we're going to do something new, contentious, high risk, we take it there for a discussion and feedback first too.
Yeah, and maybe that comes back to a comment you made earlier, the need for legislation. And I would often say that legislation moves too slowly. So if there is a new approach, a new data set, a new way of even recognizing potential criminals, um, wouldn't bringing that to the community first be better than waiting for legislation, or how do you balance that?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think if I use a worked example, to place some context here. So I don't think policing will ever be the first to use any new digital capability across sectors. There's usually other sectors that have gone far quicker, faster, harder, because the ethics and the morals and the legality around it, the risk appetite is more tolerant of
Yeah.
doing that. So you can usually see how things are working in other sectors, then you apply it into the policing environment, and then you need to come up with your use case. And it's that use case that you're taking to the public. So for facial recognition has been used in a number of industries for a long time. For policing, we could absolutely see the benefit of utilizing that technique, because you can do far more volume. You still have the human in the loop, the operator, but far more volume at scale and pace in high density areas in a way that we never could have done with just super recognizers.
Yeah.
And so we could see the potential, but that was a really slow burn in terms of making sure that the tech was scientifically and independently approved and its results were so. We went to ethics panels, we went to all sorts of different community groups, we went to, Big Brother Watch and various other people to get a rounded shape of opinion, as well as getting our own internal legal advice about, can we? And if we can legally, should we ethically? And actually the balance of the impact and the benefit to the public of deploying that capability meant that we were going to proceed. But it didn't. It was never going to get there without all of that community involvement and engagement on the way.
Yeah, and I like the model that you've described. So Big Brother Watch, of course, was profiled in the documentary Coded Bias, the way facial recognition is used and sometimes doesn't work on people with darker skin tone. So in North America, there's a lot of police departments that have said we're not going to use it at all. And yet, when something has gone terribly awry, the bombings at the Boston Marathon, for example, then the community's like, wait, why are we not using this? Can we lean in here? So the fact that you engaged earlier to craft what does the community want, what is an acceptable risk or trade-off, I think is really good.
Yeah, and I mean, it was very hard fought and won by the senior operational leaders who led that for the Met, and also South Wales Police, and the collaboration between us and the South Wales Police. For those who don't know how the policing works in the UK, there are 43 independent police services, but the collaboration between them is pretty good, especially on new capability like that, because if one doesn't use it well, it affects the ability of the rest of us to use it. So we've got that kind of collaborative approach on those kind of tech and digital capabilities.
Yeah. No, that's good. So you've described a few examples, specifically how you're using it. I like the one around concerts. So, and I know, many listeners are Swiftie fans. Describe a little bit about how it comes into play there.
So this is about our use of ThoughtSpot. So actually ThoughtSpot, so at the other end of capabilities in terms of high risk and contentious, isn't it? But it's worth talking about it because this is a tool we put in the hands of every officer. So if an officer wants to start being able to do their own searches, creating their own sort of planners, thinking about doing their own trend analysis, essentially, of crime data, which is great, isn't it? I mean, that's just exactly how you want ThoughtSpot to be used. Every officer has access to that, but you always get your kind of innovators. So this is really interesting. So this is a guy, a sergeant in our kind of Met operational planning, had been looking at actually where were crimes, how much crime, and what crimes were taking place around the Taylor Swift Eras tour, to be able to not just understand what happened, did we get our policing plan right for that event, but also to then go, okay, so what's the security, police presence, and preventative effort look like for the next up-and-coming concert? So like Dua Lipa, for instance.
Yeah.
Like, what should that look like? So it's almost become part of the planning. I like to think of utility belt, cops wearing their utility belt. Well, hanging on there is this ThoughtSpot tool for actually, a sergeant's invented a way of doing this. They've been deploying it in how they plan major events, concerts, to make sure our presence is right. And now that's replicable by other people who want to do the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And so it also sounds like that sergeant could decide what he's going to do with the technology. In this case, ThoughtSpot. He didn't have to get permission from you.
Oh, no.
You are the enabler. Is this?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, the days of being the kind of compliance person for me are gone. And there has been a time in the Met where I have been definitely Mrs. Compliance because we were all over the place and we needed to get our house in order. But now it's about going, what are the tools that really matter to the front line? What are we prepared to sanction broad brush in terms of guardrail? Put the guardrails around it and then go and let them play. And the key safely in data we've approved that they can use. And then let them tell us how they're using that capability. And there's this big feedback loop so that if someone does something well and it's replicable in other areas, then we can talk to other parts of the Met, because it's huge, guys. Talk to other parts of the Met about how they can deploy that. So yeah, the tool is in the hands of the cop. All we control is use data, the data sets that go into it, and then where they can publish and what they can host externally. But internally, the world's their oyster.
Yeah, and I feel like we might cut this, but I feel like I have to mention my godson joined the force, Harry. And he is now he's like, "Oh, now I know what you do. I'm responsible for ThoughtSpot within the Met, within his division." I was like, life comes full circle, doesn't it?
Oh, amazing. Yeah, it does. But it brings it to life, right? They're not just systems you put data in and then you get a standard thing out. They're playing with the data. They're finding what they need to do with it. It's an intuitive tool, and that's great.
Yeah, yeah. No, that is great. As you think about the range of use cases, and you mentioned sharing things with Wales, and other police forces, maybe also in Yorkshire and what have you. What are the common themes that come up? Is it around bringing the data together, or is it around the tools and technologies that make it so accessible, like another tool on the tool belt?
Yeah, I think there are two. I think both things are happening concurrently, and I'll try and explain what I mean by that. So, as well as my day job, I volunteer to co-chair the National Data and Analytics Board for Policing. So those 43 forces I told you about, we're
Okay.
trying to corral for the last 3 years. We're trying to corral them to do things once and well in the data and tech space. To make better use of public money on where we individually ask for suppliers to help us with tech, for instance. It kind of locks us away from each other in terms of sharing data because we're all on different technology systems.
Right.
So this board's purpose is to decide and define for the whole sector which data matters, what should be accessible, where do we need to almost remove the empowerment of chief constables and actually decide things once and well nationally. So that's kind of where the data and tech people are. Where are chief constables out on the ground? They're like, does this tool make things quicker for my officers? Buy it. So we're kind of at both ends of the spectrum and neither are wrong. But the reality for me is if you're going to spend public money wise and well and be able to quickly think about what capabilities are really important and which ones are sort of flash in the pan, you need some kind of national direction for the sector because it will mean your return on investment is better. Your negotiation with suppliers is better. And therefore your deployment and your training can be one
Yeah.
type, right? Not 43 different ways of doing things so that when a cop moves from Wiltshire to the Met, they actually understand the tools that they're working with.
Yeah, for sure. And I think about these 43 different police forces. I would imagine that it's the sharing the stories of impact that inspires them to say, that's what I need. Not every district will have a huge rock star stadium, or, hosting the Spurs or things like this. So I would imagine that it's the locale that also informs it, but the stories of impact would inspire consistency.
Yeah, and the one thing that policing does have in common against which you hold those stories, right, is the mission. So the overall mission of public safety and security, the overall mission of catching offenders, and the overall mission of, preventing crime and improving service to victims is a universal truth for all police services. So we all hold to the same core mission. So that's a help. And in terms of tools that have got multi-use, that's also helpful because, like you say, there'll still be somebody in the Met who needs to put a boundary around the geography that they patrol to work out what's happened inside that geography in the last 24 hours to go and speak to Mrs. Miggins or reassure Bob the Butcher or, that's going to be happening in Cumbria as much as it's happening in London. So there will be there'll be similar use cases, and then you've got, well, who's got Wembley Stadium, who's got Notting Hill
Yeah.
Carnival, but the tool is still applicable, but it's got multiple uses. I don't know if I answered your question, but it's so difficult because policing is so complicated, but at the same time, there's a single thread of what's the point of us being here that is the same for all.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Any other example or case study you want to share of data and AI making the world a better place?
I mean, there's probably loads, but can I share two just because they're
Yes,
recent in my
please
head?
do.
So on violence against women and girls, we are about to go live with a public-facing dashboard so that they can self-serve information about not just how well are we performing on violence against women and girls, but actually self-serve some preventative information. So where am I at risk? Where do I need to think about? So that's about to go live. I'm really proud of that because I'm on this absolute mission to open up the data the Met's got for the public and our partners to use. And when you come from a background or a sector that is entirely evidentially focused, because that's how you land a case, right? That's not criticism.
Yeah.
But you keep your arms around your evidence until you're ready to release at court, right? But my approach is that's fine for evidence, but data is more than evidence. Data is transparency, it's trust, it's legitimacy, it's telling the public what we're doing, whether we're doing it well or not. We should be open about that. So that open data mission for me. And then the other one is data science team, because now we're in the cloud, are looking to use the skills that they've got to try and build an agent, basically, that when a cop is at a crime scene and they're looking to do something around public protection, which thankfully there's less of that than volume crime, right? So when a frontline officer turns up, they can almost ask, in the old money, Mr. Clippy from Microsoft, what are the things I need to think about in this case? What are the things I need to check for? And they can have a relationship to make sure that rather than just going to a clipboard with a checklist, they can actually kind of have a part conversation with an agent about, have I covered all the bases here? So that later on, when they hand that case to an investigator or a detective, they haven't missed an opportunity for that investigator to get a result. And I'm really excited about the fact that that's built in-house, and we're going to trial and test it on something, because I know that won't have been done anywhere else in police.
You've shared so much, Aimee. We're going to shift to a fun lightning round. We still start with a little bit of policing in here. So the Howson household watches the TV series Happy Valley because my nephew also is a policeman in Leeds. So we do have several family members involved here. But how real would you say Happy Valley is?
I mean, some of the storylines, not so much in terms of the, it doesn't, not every cop has got all of that going on in their family, albeit, I don't know, it's a lot, very intense. I would say, though, how she is, that main character, what she's doing on a daily basis, absolutely bang on. There is so much, it's so mundane is probably the wrong word. It's not all racing around in fast cars. I think it's a great representation. And can I also say, from a covert policing perspective, I thought the first series of The Wire was pretty bang on.
The Wire.
Yeah, how culturally things are in covert policing in the UK. It used to make me laugh out loud, that one.
How about a hidden talent or hobby that might surprise your colleagues?
Oh my God, I'm at zero talent for anything, to be honest. I'd say, firstly, I have an absolute passion for Nottingham Forest Football Club. So if there's anybody listening who doesn't have a team they support, can you join mine? Because we need all the help we can get. And the second thing is, you get me after 2 glasses of wine, I'm on the karaoke. But I wouldn't say it's a talent.
Oh, no. So, okay. Next time I'm in London, karaoke. There you go. And if you could have any fictional technology that you've seen in a movie or read in a book to help your work, what would it be and why?
Gosh, I think I'm a bit old school. So I'm less about having the tech and more about having, Moneyball. So I'm more about, I'd love that cultural belief for the whole organization in the Jonah Hill character, the analyst, right? That's what I'd like to see. And I know that's not tech, But the idea that a business can buy into something so wholeheartedly and trust that insight and that technique to deliver whatever their business function, that's my dream. That's what I read a book and go, God, I wish we had that. We're nearly there, but we're not quite.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're largely there.
I mean, maybe looking from the outside in, this is not lightning round anymore, is it? But from the inside out, data is still well down the chain in an organization that is about people, public service and people, and looking after the people that help the people is still the primary function of policing. So trying to get on the battlefield to say, and could you invest in data? Could we push it to the next level? There are people who want to do that, but if the choice is politically 500 more cops on the street or an expansion of data processing into the cloud, this is not the investment point in the short term.
But it's using data for the good of the public, and I think you have come a long way. And any servant, humble leader, you just are thinking, but there's still so much more to do. It's still not so obvious. So it's all good. Based on how you answered that question, I don't think you're even going to want to answer the next question, but maybe a moment in your career when you felt the most proud of the impact of your work.
Honestly, I think very recently, so December is when we launched the Open Data Strategy, which is something we built in collaboration with the Open Data Institute, so a completely independent party to come in and help drive that. That felt like the most proud moment because it felt culturally the hardest one to achieve. And the fact that we got it there, the fact that we've delivered that and now said to the public, we're going to do this, genuinely is a humbling moment for me because I never thought we would get there, but I kept banging on about it because it's so important. It's just so important as the next wave of public trust and legitimacy for me. And I may not be in the Met in 10 years' time when that fully comes to fruition and that sort of level of confidence and engagement is there, but it's for me to guardian it for the next one. And I think the leaders in 10 years' time will be really glad we've got it.
Yeah, no, that's good. How about you can choose the last one of two, either something that has so made you laugh out loud recently, or what are you grateful for, maybe beyond the obvious of health and family?
I'm going to go with grateful. Is that all right? So the thing I think I'm most grateful for is just the team at work. They are, and when I say team, there's the team that works directly for me who strive every day to try and put the strategy and the vision that I endlessly waffle on about in place. And they've dragged us into the light, and it's been amazing to work with them. And they're so good for the Met. And I think I can see the next generation of data leaders coming from them. And I'm also just grateful for that network that keep me grounded. So the Women in Data Steering Committee that I'm part of, Davin, Caroline, and a whole range of other people, Caroline Bellamy at the Ministry of Defense. There are just so many great data leaders to be humbled in the presence of. And I can call them up and say, I still don't know how to do this. And then we'll talk it through. And vice versa, but I think the data community is an amazing collaborative network because in the main, we're all doing something for the first time in our sector and there's no one to follow. And so we're almost holding hands, sort of keeping in pace with each other. And I find that I'm so grateful that it exists.
Yeah, as am I. Aimee, thank you so much for being on the Data Chief podcast, but more importantly, for all the work that you and your team do to make London, the UK, with those 43 agencies, a safer place. Thank you, Aimee.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining the Data Chief as we explore data and AI leadership. To continue your journey, subscribe to our podcast on your preferred listening platform and connect with me on LinkedIn or X at BI Scorecard. If you are loving this podcast, please rate or review it so others can also discover the podcast.
The Data Chief is brought to you by ThoughtSpot, the AI native intelligence platform built for everyone to create personalized insights, drive data decisions, and take action. Learn how companies like Lyft, Brambles, and Navan are leading the way at ThoughtSpot.com.